All right. My name is Professor Sean Collin from the Oceans Institute, sitting here in Perth in Western Australia at the University of Western Australia, but physically within the Indian Ocean Marine Research Centre. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar, which will be covering a very important but exciting new Master of Ocean Leadership course that we'll be offering in the near future. This course has been developed over the last couple of years in association with both the UWA Oceans Institute and the newly formed Oceans Graduate School here at the University of Western Australia. The Oceans Graduate School is really our training arm and sits under the Faculty of Engineering and Mathematical Sciences, while the Oceans Institute is a broader, more multidisciplinary offering, again, very much focused on training and research outcomes at the University of Western Australia, sitting right on the Indian Ocean. And we thought that this was a wonderful opportunity to bring a lot of the different disciplines represented under this banner to provide an opportunity to train our next leaders in ocean research, trying to incorporate all the different disciplines that may embody. And given our position on the Indian Ocean, we are hopeful this will be very influential, both locally, nationally, and importantly, across the Indian Ocean Rim countries, which we are facing, of course. So welcome to those who are listening in, and we're going to just progress through the PowerPoint slides. I'm joined here by Ben Robson from the marketing team. If you can't hear me or you have some difficulties, please type in your questions, etc., and we'll try and sort of remedy those situations if required during my talk. But I would also hasten to say that we certainly will allow questions at the end of the presentation, which should be probably about 25 minutes at the very most. So feel free to type in your questions at the end of the presentation, and we'll either answer them immediately or if we need a little bit of time, we'll try and answer within 24 hours or less to make sure that you fully understood everything that was presented. At the end of the presentation, there's also some links and further information for contact details. So we'd recommend that you utilise that opportunity to ask questions and gain more information. All right, so we might start off, and by way of introduction, the Oceans Graduate School sits within the Faculty of Engineering and Mathematical Sciences, and this is a faculty which has been in existence for many years and is rated 5 stars for graduate starting salaries, and our graduates are among the highest paid in Australia. So our reputation precedes us. We have world-renowned lecturers, teachers, tutors, and our facilities, although excellent already, are about to receive a major boost. We've just entered phase 1 of an estimated $250 million upgrade of our engineering infrastructure. So this is an investment program that's dedicated to the student experience and will be heavily utilised within this new program of Master of Ocean Leadership. The project's called the E-Zone, UWA, and you can find more information about this online. But it will expand and improve our offerings both for research, for teaching, and the student experience over the next couple of years. So we're very excited about that, and yeah, the Master of Ocean Leadership will feature heavily within those new facilities. The Engineering and Mathematical Sciences faculty network is over 17,000 alumni. So by coming here and partaking in the MOL, as I'll call it, you are part of a much larger network which will span the globe. And So we hope you'll be a part of this experience. Now, moving on, just to specifically introduce the Master of Ocean Leadership. This is a program which is designed to prepare graduates to undertake leadership positions in the future across a whole range of different fields. This can be very multidisciplinary, but specialised in your major field of interest. It will cover such fields as social, economic, legal and environmental areas to strategically address human challenges in ocean systems and to learn about how to implement solutions for the future of our coasts and our seas, dedicated to the Indian Ocean, but applicable globally. The MOL program is highly interactive. It'll be flexible and challenging, offering the opportunity for individuals to grow professionally and personally through student-centered teaching approaches and multidisciplinary learning. What it will do is focus on ocean-related fields, and we hope that successful graduates will actually assume leadership positions in the future. What we'll be focused on is knowledge-related areas across both traditional and also other fields, both multi and cross-disciplinary. So the typical fields of science will be covered, and underneath that banner there'll be teachings under fisheries management, marine biology, conservation, marine ecology and behaviour, and even aquaculture. Engineering will focus on technology, sensors and how they're used to monitor the health of the ocean, deep sea exploration, including the use of remote operated vehicles to explore unseen areas of our deep ocean, oceanography, whether it be biological and or physical. We'll also focus on coastal processes. The Indian Ocean has a whole plethora of different processes, some of which are quite intense in relation to tidal flows, etc. So the learnings will be around how these processes affect coastal development and, of course, the biological environment. We'll also, under the engineering banner, be covering observing systems and how to monitor the health of the ocean, whether it be in shallow water or even deep water. This will be done by in situ monitoring and collection of data, but also using satellites with respect to remote sensing. Under the banner of law, this will cover many different aspects, and we'll give you some examples later. But this will be the law of the sea, oceans governance, the territories that each country and state overlook or oversee in relation to resources, and even cover things such as piracy. Management will cover such things and different perspectives such as resource economics, the different perspectives from a political perspective, social and environmental perspective of how our oceans can and should be managed. And also finally commerce, where policies and the financial issues surrounding this fine balance between resource management and protection or environmental sustainability will also be looked at. So students will be equipped at the end of the course to work in multidisciplinary contexts. And in fact, one of the core courses is dedicated to using different disciplines and how to incorporate different disciplines into effective teams. So this is quite exciting and really will set up the successful applicants to look at a large breadth of different issues facing our oceans. So to move on, the MOL will enable graduates to strategically address some of the major human challenges in ocean systems, and even talk about and debate the implementation of solutions for the future of our coasts and our seas in various ways. So providing knowledge is important, and up-to-date knowledge will inform how much current information and what new information needs to be gained on the marine environment itself, the management and governance of our oceans, the use of new technologies in ocean engineering, how to analyse that data, especially in relation to getting baseline data on the health of our oceans and predicting the effects of things like climate change and global warming, but also importantly hazards. And we'll cover a little bit of this later, but hazards such as sea level rise or tsunamis, which are very hard to predict, but using monitoring tools and sensors, we are actually able to predict how often these hazards will in fact be happening and their effects on coastal communities. All of this can be sort of summarized into what we call the blue economy. So the blue economy will be examined in all of its different guises, and this is really concentrated on this fine balance between environmental sustainability and resource management. And Indian Ocean is a very good example of how this is being done and from different contexts. So students will build expertise in managing the marine environment and gain strategic leadership skills in both socio-economic and regulatory contexts, so they can actually talk to the regulators, to government and the community equally in how best to manage our oceans in the future. So the way the course is structured, there will be 8 core units and a large number of electives. The core units are listed here, and I'm just going to go through those very briefly and give you a little bit of a hint of what might be covered in each of these. So the first one is the Indian Ocean environment. It's a very large ocean. In fact, it's the ocean we know probably least about. We will draw on expertise from other oceans and other knowledge, but there's a lot we can impart and share about the Indian Ocean, but that will cover things such as the animals, whether it be megafauna or different species of corals and seagrasses and invertebrate life. We'll cover the zones in a depth profile, but also in a transect from shallow water out to deep water. We'll cover processes which affect the Indian Ocean environment, such as currents, etc., and also how this affects Indian Ocean rim countries and the islands and societies where the Indian Ocean is extremely important. Next core unit in oceans governance, we'll look at economic zones of different countries, their borders, such things as biosecurity, the legislation that's governing the use of these resources and how that might be used by fisheries, both within country and internationally. Working with with multiple disciplines is the next core unit, and as I said before, this is where we'll be using a number of case studies, generally off-site, so there'll be excursions involved in this type of approach, where different case studies will be put up. It might be the use of wave energy, for instance. It might be the use of indigenous knowledge. The scope will be quite wide, but what will happen is how different disciplines can be brought in. Different experts will have guest appearances to instruct how you might go about bringing in different disciplines, understanding the language and applying that to a specific problem or issue that's facing the Indian Ocean, for instance. The next core unit is strategic leadership of the blue economy. So this is looking even further afield at how and what sorts of leadership skills a person will need to look closely at the blue economy and all of its specific issues. Ocean data analysis is quite a specific core unit, and this will really bring in monitoring systems that are already in place, such as IMOS, which stands for the Integrated Marine Observing System, which utilises a glider facility that works out of the University of Western Australia, but links with other similar nodes and observing systems around Australia and also internationally. This course will cover how to access current monitoring data through the Australian Ocean Data Network, the AODN, how to process it and even use it for predicting ocean change into the future. The next core unit, Sustainable Marine Management and Planning, will really be concentrating on the perspective of regulators and marine managers and what sorts of knowledge and information they need to make their job successful. So this will probably, will certainly focus on sustainable fisheries, the establishment of marine protected zones, how those sorts of decisions are made by marine managers and even governments, the use of certain technologies such as baited remote underwater video systems for assessing the numbers of sharks, the numbers of fishes, megafauna, and also transects of underwater diversity, coral reef species, invertebrate species, and how biodiversity measures or indices can be used by regulators and policymakers to make sure that these particular environments are in fact sustainable. The next core unit will look into ocean hazards. Now, ocean hazards can be defined in various ways, but the ones we'll concentrate on are sea level rise, things called internal waves, which are quite powerful but underwater tsunamis in some sense of the word that can impact both the environment but also anthropogenically installed infrastructure such as oil and gas platforms. In that course, we'll also cover monitoring systems for major tsunamis, sensor technology that's been set up worldwide to indicate the severity of a tsunami, and even modelling techniques to predict tsunamis, their effect on coastal environments focused on the Indian Ocean. Of course, it will also cover things like cyclones and how the effects of cyclones can be realised and in fact assessed. Obviously, WA and parts of Northern Australia are affected by cyclones routinely, and this is an important aspect of environmental hazards that we can cover intimately. And also monitoring and predictive modelling in general about the effects of global warming and changes in both temperature and the acidity of our oceans and the effects that might have in the future, and whether some species may or may not be resilient to those types of hazards. And the final core unit is on ocean engineering and technology. The University of Western Australia has worldwide acknowledged expertise in the stabilisation of oil and gas platforms. We have a number of major engineering pieces of kit that allow monitoring and modelling of how soils react to anchors, the environmental impacts of tsunamis and how infrastructure can be maintained safely and sustainably. This course will also touch on oil spill mitigation, big issues such as decommissioning, which is an issue which is facing a lot of the oil and gas companies off the Northwest Shelf, but also globally, and what should be done with spent infrastructure, whether it should be removed as per legislation, or can it be left there safely and sustainably to form new reefs, etc. So all of this will be covered in the Engineering and Technology core unit, including looking at the deep sea and the prospects of deep sea mining and how we can monitor some of the most inhospitable parts of our oceans using ROVs or even AUVs to learn more about this extremely large part of our planet that we know almost nothing about. So, as I said before, the core units all have to be done, and this gives a very nice grounding across a lot of different areas. But to make the course as flexible as possible, a large number of electives will be available for students to really specialise on what is driving their interest in the ocean and where they might see themselves concentrating later. So over the next few slides, I'll just briefly mention them as we go through. A number of electives are mentioned under each of the different themes. So under marine science, we have marine conservation and fisheries management. These are existing courses that are offered at UWA, but students doing the MOL will be able to slot in, timetable dependent, into any of these different courses that they're interested in. So in addition to marine conservation and fisheries management, we have environmental planning and management. Interesting one called Sex and the Sea, which is all about reproduction of various organisms and how important the environment is for sustainable ability of the species and procreation. Marine megafauna, again, a big interest with a lot of expertise at UWA, looking at the movement patterns of large animals such as whale sharks and dugongs, etc. Data use in the natural sciences and analysis for natural resource management. And there's also another course not listed there on marine neuroecology and behaviour that also may be of interest. Under ocean engineering and technology, ecological engineering and green infrastructure, wastewater engineering, project management and engineering practice, and also hydrology are on offer. Some of these courses have prerequisites, most of them don't, but you'll find online even more electives under each of these different categories, and you can find whether prerequisites are in place or not on the UWA handbook for each of our yearly offerings. Next slide shows under the Oceans Governance and Economics theme a large number of different courses which are available for those planning on a more law or governance oriented career in ocean leadership. So such things as governance in the international system, public policy, there's even courses on climate change law and emissions trading. Large one, law of the sea, a lot of international issues around shipping and environmental law are also covered. Heritage governance, concentrating on the Australian system, the Australian oil and gas law elective. There's also courses on non-government organisations, governance and development, and how one can work together at these sort of rather large levels to look at the ocean governance and economics of doing so. Other subjects cover climate change policy and even environmental and resource economics, which we have a large centre at UWA as well. So all of these will be taught by experts, global experts in the field, and are all very flexible. Under leadership and management, also a number of courses available as an elective. So these are principles of responsible management, organisational behaviour and leadership, applied professional business communications, even innovation in enterprise. Innovation is sometimes very hard to define these days, but innovative thinking, but also more entrepreneurial issues around the blue economy will be covered. Biotechnology and the commercialization of things that are meant to be used, whether it's an engineering or even an idea. IP is covered, the commercialization pathway is discussed, etc. And some of these can be even used as case studies, in particular to your interests. Commercialization management projects will be on offer, as will security and crisis in the Asia Pacific region. Human factors, things as obviously shift workers, stress, etc., how this can affect decision-making processes, and organisational development and work design. So obviously a large plethora of courses to pander to your particular interests as you move forward. Under skill building, and again this covers a lot of the different disciplines that we'll be covering, working with a range of different stakeholders, whether they be academics, consultants, community groups, the government, other industry partners, etc., all bears thinking about in relation to building a skill base which will concentrate and focus on the issues that you will inevitably be faced with. How to evaluate skills, evaluate the data that you've actually got, communicating those sorts of strategies for change, the issues of peer review and application, etc., will also be covered. And under the heading there of new electives, there's also the option of actually a dissertation. Now, this is not a PhD level dissertation, but it will be a small thesis, which could be very focused on something you're particularly interested in, and that you set up with a supervisor or group of supervisors based on your interests. So this is a research elective. Will no doubt have a communication aspect in relation to proposing an idea of an area of research, but also hands-on research where you may go into the field to partake and really run your own set of experiments, which will be written up and, all being well, could actually be published as well. And that would be in conjunction with a team of expert supervisors, and you'll be part of a cohort of other students that may be doing similar things. We've also got another elective which will be focused on decommissioning offshore infrastructure, which is one of our newest offerings. And again, as I said earlier, this will be concentrating on the pros and cons of decommissioning in general, what issues are faced by industry to do such things, whether it's economic, social, or even safety aspects of decommissioning their infrastructure. Right, now the study plans are still flexible at this stage. We are planning on initiating the Master of Ocean Leadership next year, so that'll be 2019, starting in semester 1. And we're in the process of pulling together a number of different study plans, depending on where you're coming from, either internationally or locally or within other parts of Australia. How long you want your course to be, so there's even flexibility in how long the course will run. So we actually have a 2-year course option or an 18-month course option, depending on if you'd like to include other electives or even a research project, as I've just outlined. So there's flexibility in the length of the course, and also flexibility in when you'll do the core units, the 8 core units which have to be done, but also the timetable of the electives. Because of the large list of electives, depending on when they're held, there's a lot of flexibility in when how you might mix and match your core units and the electives that are actually on offer. But the plan is to have semester 1, 2019, the kickoff, and then that can run for 2 years or onto the next slide, even for 1.5 years or 18 months, based on timetabling issues related to what you're interested in doing and the number of electives that you really like to take on. Okay, we're pretty well nearing the end now, and this last slide is just as by way of giving you some information and an email address there. Future students at uwa.edu.au. There's also some web links there and some online frequently asked questions at askuwa.edu.au. There's also phone numbers which will be manned, and you can ask questions about the MOL or indeed the university